allocation of resources. So typically when, let's say, a games console, the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, run an application, despite the fact that you have a whole bunch of programs running. For example, you can have Netflix, you can have DVR, or of course friends lists and all this other stuff that's happening. Ultimately, the game runs with a high priority, so everything else will be sent to the background or slower memory, and for example the PS4 Pro shunts it off to DDR3 memory, while the bulk of the GPU resources, bulk of the CPU resources go all the way to making sure that the game runs as best as it can on the requisite hardware. However, a new feature was spotted by Walking Cat, who is a Twitter user, and he has claimed that in a leaked build, which is 14997, I repeat, 14997, there is a very interesting new feature which has popped up for insiders. And it also will be popping up for insiders, and it's with the creators update. It has a new DLL, game mode DLL, so it looks like a game mode thing. Essentially, it looks like Windows will adjust its allocation of logic, for example CPU graphics, to prioritize the game when running in game mode. Now, there is a few questions regarding how this is going to work in reality. Windows Store is almost a shoo-in that, of course, any title, at least any recent title, is going to work. So we can almost be self-assured that, say, Gears of War 4 will support this. But what happens if you were to go out and, let's say, buy the same game on Steam or Origin? Well, that's a bit of a different kettle of fish, and whether that's going to happen or not is a bit of a mystery. Adding to that is what happens to older games. Now, being honest with you, if it's really old, for example, let's say, I don't know, Quake 2, which is very old, it probably doesn't really matter so much. But if it's a more modern title, which is, let's say, released last year, let's say Crysis 3, then assuming your PC is not bleeding edge, it still requires quite a bit of grunt to run that, especially if it's, let's say, 4K. So in theory, what will happen here, and I'm obviously basing this on very little information other than these tweets, is I can imagine applications which, if the game is running and let's say it requires more memory than you have available, it in theory will page other applications to virtual memory. For example, if you've got Word open, let's say you've got a Microsoft Office suite open, and perhaps you've got a few web browsers open, it might page those to the hard drive. And obviously, if you have some CPU intensive tasks running in the background, for example, let's say an antivirus scan decides, oh hi, I'm going to start doing things now, it will probably put that in a very low priority queue, maybe just stick it on one processor core. Let's say you've got a quad core, or perhaps even 12 threads on your processor. It's very possible that it will put those on either very low priority, or it will run them on just one or two threads rather than making it available for everything, and therefore in theory the game itself will be able to run at a much faster speed. Now, how much difference that's going to make in reality, we can only assume based upon, well, I guess it's going to depend on the system itself, but I imagine we're going to see a small speed up for some systems, and obviously it also will make a difference based upon what you're running in the background. So for example, if you're someone who does a lot of multitasking, then I imagine you're going to see a much greater gain, at least in theory, than someone who just, for example, switches their PC on and runs, say, just a game and then quits out of it and then does something else and quits everything and then loads up again. But either way, it is quite a nice update. And it does also point the fact that Microsoft PC gaming and Xbox and a unification of sorts is definitely in the minds of everyone. I think we can all be very self-assured right now that Microsoft are very much planning commitment to PC gaming in the long term, and they really, really want us to, I suppose, think of Windows and PC gaming as synonymous, whereas there was this point in time, and yes, for some reason there's random fireworks which are going on in the background. I'm not quite sure why the hell they just randomly started, but I think that they want them to, us rather, as customers, to think, hey, PC gaming, Windows are one and the same, and it was like that for a while. you know, the early 2000s, late 90s PC gaming, and Windows were very much part and parcel with one another. But since then, you know, Microsoft and PC gaming kind of had a bit of a weird relationship with one another. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this. For folks wondering, I am actually pausing the Switch analysis for a couple of days. Instead, I'm doing something else, which should be available tomorrow or the day after. The reason I'm not doing the Switch analysis is because a couple of pieces of news have popped up. And essentially, those pieces of news have added some extra stuff regarding the specifications, and have also led me to wonder whether some of the earlier reports regarding the Switch's specifications are 100% accurate. And so I don't necessarily want to be spending a whole bunch of my time doing an analysis on something which could ultimately be incorrect in a few days. So I'll probably wait until the early new year, until everyone's back at work, and perhaps some of the leakers can start working their magic regarding that. So I have something else which is really cool, so I think you'll appreciate it anyway. Normal stuff. If you like the video, well, you know, leave a like, comment what you think of this update, and whether it's something that you will actually utilise. And apart from that, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Gather skulls and empower your golem.
Four, three, two, one.
All right. There we go. So we have a single Vega card powered by the Ryzen CPU in our new high-performance AMD AM4 motherboard, running the brand new, soon-to-be-released Star Wars Battlefront Rogue One DLC in 4K. Look at that, Renee, you're pretty good at this.
Oh yeah.
And guys, you can see this looks absolutely amazing. We are running at greater than 60 frames per second, faster than the refresh rate of this 4K.
Too easy.
Does she look good or what?
Nature of this land is beyond death.
We are so super excited to show you this. This, by the way, folks, is the Dream Gaming PC for 2017. In action for the very first time. How about a great round of applause for Renee?
The sun lights my path.
All right, guys, look, it's truly an incredible time for PC gaming.
Rise
AMD
again, my
is bringing
golems,
innovation
and
and
unleash
confidence.
your boundless anger. The golems have been defeated. dead rise again, heroes. Dare you enter the mine? Well done.
Thank you, healer.
Do you hear that clattering? I believe
Take down that hero, now!
my pleasure. Enemy slain. Double kill.
Is that all you can muster?
Outstanding.
Our ally needs help.
Will return shortly. Now is the hour of my golem's return. I will never underestimate them again. Your golems are of similar strength. The enemy has destroyed a fort. Double kill.
Rift is a better option if you have limited space because it's very easy to set up and tear down. But if you have the space, the HTC Vive, hands down, is my favorite. And as far as the games, there are literally thousands of games now. Like even specific VR games. There's a whole library of VR games that you can't even play with VR. And a lot of them, and those are the games that I really like. I mean, you'll probably agree with me on this, Jay. The games that are designed for the HTC Vive specifically are some of the most engaging games there are because you have that one-to-one world feeling and you can stay in for longer and you don't feel disoriented.
This is what happens when you have early adoption. Is there's time? It takes time for the experience to become seamless because there's this scramble to try and catch this code to work with you, which is not the best experience. For instance, iRacing works with Vive, but it is not as good of an experience as Project Cars, which is directly supported on Vive, or Assetto Corsa, which is patched to work with Vive if you use Revive injector and trick configuration, which is sad that I feel the developers of iRacing have done a poor job of implementing Vive support when you can trick Assetto Corsa into thinking you're wearing an Oculus and you get a better experience with the Vive.
I know, right?
Than you do with a game that says it supports the Vive. So
Yeah.
that's where we are with this right now. It's probably going to take another year or two before we start seeing VR become a bit more adopted, in my opinion. And you can correct me if you think I'm wrong with this. You've experienced Vive, you've experienced Oculus. We still are not there yet with resolution.
No.
There is still a screen door effect no matter what, and the screen door effect is noticed most on games that have slow movement. Games that are having you stare in one spot for longer than a couple of seconds. Because if you're moving the headset around quickly, the screen door effect is a lot less noticeable. You have a much more natural that happens.
Yep.
But when you're looking in one area or off into the distance and you have minute, small movements with your head, then the screen door effect is very noticeable. Literally, you can experience this yourself. If you have a screen door or a screen on a window in your house during the day, go to it, put your face against it, and look through it. And if you move your head side to side real quick, you can see through that screen as if it's not there. It just looks a little bit darker, right? It almost looks like like you're looking through sunglasses. It's shaded a little bit. But if you stop your eyes and you try and look straight, then the screen becomes an effect that you can see. So the same thing happens in VR. Once that is taken care of, and the graphics processing side of things becomes where the lower end cards can give you the same experience of where the mid to high end cards are giving you today, then VR will become something that's much more adopted and implemented both on consumer and developer side of things. Because it's like niche of a niche, right? You've got to have pretty decent hardware to run VR unintruded, and then you've got to pay $700 to just get the VR. So it's huge.
The other big problem too is that the two companies that are the front runners in this, and I don't want to exclude Sony because I think Sony's offering is actually pretty decent for PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
But from a computer standpoint, right? You have the Rift and you have the HTC Vive, and they both are so worried about cornering the market as the one top VR solution that they go out to become incompatible with each other, and they even go one step further as the subsidized companies into companies to stay loyal to the one platform or the other. And even though I think that in the short term that might be good for them as far as adoption, what it's going to do is it's going to kill VR if the companies keep doing this. They need to standardize on some VR standard like DirectX. There needs to be Direct VR.
Right.
Everybody creating a VR solution.
API designed for it.
If they had designed for it, everybody would adopt it. You'd see way more games because companies wouldn't have to have this massive investment to go one way or the other or support both.
Hayden Butler in chat asks an important question. He says, does SLI work with VR? Because if we're talking about the idea of then that's a very good question. There's two graphics experience. The answer is, on the NVIDIA side of things, there is code with Pascal that will allow independent VR per eye. If you have SLI, where one card will control the right eye and one card can control the left eye, giving you a more seamless experience. If the developer does a good job at implementing that piece of code that NVIDIA has included, was very similar to like the VR. It's part of VRWorks, I believe, which is part of like their suite of stuff that a developer has to then license and adopt. So it also brings us to that. You talked about them going in and subsidizing developers to code specifically for their hardware. The same stuff happens with graphics cards. The difference is if you have a developer that codes specifically with, NVIDIA's suite of APIs, at least it doesn't exclude AMD. You just don't get to use those special refinements. You still get the code. But like right now, like I said, you can trick and hack it with Revive and Oculus. Oculus is like home software to make it think you're running an Oculus. Otherwise, you can't even experience VR, which is kind of a mess up.
And most people are just not going to. They're not going to go to those lengths.
But let's look at it this way. Let's play devil's advocate. How different is the code if you can trick one into thinking you're wearing the other and it works flawless?
Not very. It's not at the core stuff that matters. Like the top 90% of the functionality must be almost identical, especially considering that enabled to translate from one to the other, there has to be another layer added, which intrinsically adds lag. And you've told me that the experience is actually really lag free, which tells me that there's not much being added to the stack. Otherwise,
there's quite a bit of predictive rendering happening. On AMD, it's a little differently, and not always right. Where AMD will do it will try to predict what's happening with the movement, and it will actually insert frames and will tweak these frames to try and I don't want to explain this. I had an entire meeting with them about this, but I haven't run low in hardware VR to actually experience it. Where it will take a frame that's already been rendered, and it will, like in real time, warp that frame to mimic the movement that's taking place. So instead of trying to redraw that frame from the new perspective, it will take that frame and warp it to be that perspective. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And in AMD, it seems to be that there's some work that needs to be done with this predictive technology. Whereas NVIDIA does a pretty good job at predicting movement to reduce lag, it's not doing it by design. And so it can sometimes be a jarring experience according to what they've said to me, where sometimes it's not right and it might give you a really distorted look.
And that's a real problem with VR. That is definitely a real problem. Is if there are any hiccups, even like a 1-frame hiccup, it can mess with you.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting where we are with VR. When the VR experience is good, it's an experience that it's unlike any other. You guys have seen on the racing stuff. I've become friends with Stephen Doherty, who was one of the GT Academy champions, and he is a fully licensed internationally holds an international racing license, and he was over here and spent quite a few hours on my Vive on the Obutto Revolution with the Fanatec wheel and stuff, playing in a GT3 or a GT3 GTR at Spa, which is the car he drove at that exact track. So he was in a very unique experience position to be able to say, I drove this exact car that is on the screen right now at this exact track, to be able to tell me how does it compare to real life. Now check this out. At first he was crashing a lot because one, he wears glasses, and two, he had to take those off to fit the VR headset that didn't fit his glasses. So he had a little bit of a visual impairity already. But here's the thing, I gave him an hour on there, and he started literally doing times on this VR experience, this VR simulator that I hadn't seen. Like the way he was driving was just like, my God, you can tell the guy was a pro driver. But the thing was, you could tell he was in a groove, right? Are you listening, Jerry?
I am.
Okay, you could tell he was in a groove. And after a couple hours, he finally takes it off, gives himself a little bit of a break. He was driving this thing flawlessly. And I asked him, I said, dude, so what'd you think? He looks at me and he goes, that is insane. He goes, that is intense. He goes, that, with the exception of it being a non-motion simulator, is as close as you can get to being there. And I looked at him, I said, you almost look like you were driving off muscle memory. He goes, I was. He goes, it got less and less me looking ahead at what was happening and me remembering my cues and my landmarks and just going off what I had pre-programmed in my mind of mental timing of here's where I turn the wheel, here's how much gas I give it. He made some adjustments. And he got to the point to where he was literally driving for 2 hours purely off muscle memory because of what the VR was able to allow his brain to do. And he goes, that is insane. He goes, I've never experienced anything like that.
Well, VR gives you one thing that nothing else does, and that is depth perception. And it's accurate perception. You know where a corner is. You know where your braking point is. And you have to approximate those things when you're using a flat screen. You have to approximate those things based on where you are on the track, not just looking at a point. And that's the one thing I noticed even when I came down and tried your setup before you had the better equipment. When you just had the Logitech stuff on there, that's the first thing you notice. And your perception of speed is a lot different. Like you notice when you drive a real car, you don't feel like you're going 300 miles an hour like when you look at a screen that has like an 80-degree field of view or whatever, or even 120 degrees. It doesn't feel like you're going, you're fairly slow and controlled. But if you're in the right seating position with the depth perception, you start to feel the sense of speed even though you're not moving. And that's something I never got with screens.
In VR, I feel like I'm going slower than when the screen is flat.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Feel like you have time to react to things, whereas when you're on the screen, as things move out to the edge of the screen, they move faster, right? Because of the resolution. And so you have this like GoPro feel. Like you watch GoPro footage, it looks like everything's going 90 gabillion miles an hour, right? Because the massive curvature.
If it's on wide view.
Yeah, if it's super wide angle. And you get that same kind of sensation when you're playing on a screen, because if you narrow the field of view enough to where it's realistic, you have no peripheral vision at all.
Right.
No, but in the so that's the two things I would say VR gives you is the peripheral vision that you don't have with the monitor. I'd say even better than a surround setup, right? Because it's almost to the edge of your view without you moving your eyes left or right, right? It's at the edge of your vision. And you have that depth perception, so when you're coming into corner, especially if you're racing with other people on the track, you're going to have far less collisions because you'll be able to judge the closing distance just like you were driving your regular car.
Remember, NVIDIA intentionally blurs the perimeter of the screen on VR headsets. I don't know if you've actually paid attention to the changes they've made over time with the way the GPU will render in VR. So only like the center portion, or like a circle in the center of the headset, is actually being rendered clear or sharp. The rest of it is blurred because they looked at it like this way. When the headset is on, and that's in peripheral view, it's already blurry anyway. So why waste processing power to make something sharp? Your vision is just going to make blurry anyway. So it saves up a lot of horsepower there too.
No, that's actually a really good point. And that's something that's really important with VR too, is you have to, like, a lot of games will run right to, like, as long as you can get 60 or 55 frames per second, you're good, right? Remember, in VR, you have a minimum of 90 per eye, and you can never drop under that. You cannot drop under that. So the programmers definitely have to be conscious of, oh, if there's more things to render on the screen, we need to be preemptive about it. Drop the rendering down so that it can keep that pace. Because even the smallest little hiccups, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, like if you're playing a game and you're turning your head and it freezes for a second,
oh, it messes with you so much.
You almost stop your head and like you almost jar your neck because your brain's like, oh, stop moving. And it's a hard thing to combat. Like I remember I played putt-putt golf on there a long time ago. This is when the retail vibe just came out. And I'm playing putt-putt golf and I'm swinging the club and the club freezes in my hand, and I drop the. Like I wasn't swinging it fast. It's just the hiccup from it. Just my brain jolted, and I was like, oh.
Your brain glitched.
Yeah, glitched, and I just let go of the controller. And I'm like, why did I let go of the controller? That made no sense. But it's because the control, the sense of motion just stopped.
Right.
And my reaction to that was like, oh shit moment, and I just let go.
Have you ever experienced on the Vive where you'll be standing there and suddenly it tilts?
Yes.
That makes you want to fall over.
Yeah, and you know, unfortunately, I think I know what causes that. It's the two lighthouses that are in your reflect off something, like whether it be the paint on the wall or something, or the lighting's just right in the room, and it distorts it, and it messes with your peripheral. And I've seen this happen in rooms that have a lot of windows.
Yeah, and you've seen my upstairs. Even though I close all the blinds, there's still a lot of natural light.
Yep. So I think it's the reflections from the watchtowers, and HTC has done a good job of improving the situation. Because I remember when it first came out, like I tried it in one room where there was a window where it's like you turn your head and you just flip upside down.
Yeah.
The thing would just instantly, like the reflection from the tower would get mistaken as one of the towers, and it would just throw your whole world into chaos. And they didn't have any kind of filtration. What they should do is they should have some filtration in the code that says that if you move beyond the capability of a human capacity, like don't do it.
Just like suddenly we just went Cirque du Soleil up in here.
Yeah, no, it literally, yeah. In one frame of animation, you're upside down, and of course your brain just goes completely freaking nuts. Yeah. And then you take off and you're dizzy. But just like with being on boats and stuff like that, you'll notice that the more you use VR, the more comfortable you become with it. Like I've seen people put it on for the first time, and in the one-to-one games, they're pretty, they're okay. But after playing for like 10, 15 minutes, they'll take it off and they'll feel a little disoriented and have to see like. But the more that you do it, like I know people that play VR now that'll stay in a game for 4 hours.
What?
Like, and they're fine. Yeah, like for instance. But I haven't done it in a while, so I bet you if I put it on, I'd probably have some issues. And the biggest issues that you have with VR are in the games where you're stationary but moving, like the racing games.
Oh yeah.
A little bit of getting used to, because your brain's like, dude, you're sitting still, but you're definitely
real quick. Everyone in the chat, no, I'm not talking about Ryzen. We did that a couple weeks ago. We had a show that was almost dedicated to Ryzen. Ryzen will be talked about when it's out.
That's right. We're not going to speculate anymore because, well, I'll speculate. Jay won't, but I'm going to speculate that it's not going to be as good as they're saying it is, and it's going to have a huge Achilles heel.
An Achilles heel?
Achilles heel.
Achilles heel or Hercules heel?
No, Achilles.
Oh, you got a message waiting.
Oh, do I? Thank you. Thank you for notifying me. Yeah.
How can I hear it and you can't?
Actually, I'd like to know where these messages are coming from. What sound is that? Is that Facebook or something? Like, I don't have anything open. It wasn't Hobbs. I checked the window. Oh, you're right. That was a Steam message.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my status on Steam away because I think everybody knows I'm streaming, so they're sending me messages. Everybody does that. Like whenever we stream, they try to find like all the different places that they can squeeze a message through on me.
Let's see here. So there was a donation here from Celtic guy, the one I said earlier that disappeared. So he's a big fan of all your channels. Thanks for the entertainment. My question is, I want to find a case that can handle dual water cooling loops, motherboard, CPU, and a twin GPU loop. Budget around $200.
Oh, never mind. A withdrawal.
Currently have an X99 Strix gaming. For that price, you're probably gonna have to look somewhere in the Fantech. They've got some pretty good. They've got some pretty good cases there that can handle multiple GPUs, 480 rads, and stuff like that. I would look in that lineup. The Fantech's N2 Primo is a good one too. It's a big case though. If you're looking for a case that can handle that much water cooling stuff, you're gonna end up dealing with it.
Case Labs.
Don't. It said $200, dude.
I know. It's just another zero on there. Get Case Labs. What's the big one that they make? Was it THA?
Yes, TH10.
Oh God, that thing! I stood next to one of those, and I was like, holy crap!
If you get an STH10 with both the bottom and top pedestal, it's like
it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. They can build multiple computers, so that'd be kind of crazy.
I think it's designed also be like a
Anthony Lackey said, "Your sweat is my sweat. You going to PDX Land in February?" Yeah, actually, I think I am. I think that's one that Puget attends, so I will definitely be there. Alex Sloan said, Jerry, I hope Xander's had a great Christmas. He did have a great Christmas. And I hope you guys have a great new year. Hopefully we get some more 3D printing videos soon. Yes, you shall, because I just got an Ultimaker 3 and I am excited. Finally, a 3D printer that finally changes the game a little bit. About time. Let's see. Harry, no, hold on here. What's Jason Keys said, are you planning to go to CES? I'll buy you and Jay a beer. You just have to buy Jay a beer. Actually, give my beer to Coconut Monkey.
I've got no time to do any meetups, and I'm not gonna be anywhere open to the public either.
Jay, he gave me $20. You have to at least meet him for a beer now. Come on.
No, you need to meet him for a beer. So fly down from San Francisco, Seattle, or wherever you are.
All right, I will book a ticket and I will fly to CES. Since I don't have a room, I will just fly back the same day and we can have a beer. I think.
Hey, so what's the weather where you are right there?
That's about 40-some degrees, I think, right now.
What was the high today?
Let me check. Actually, I'm kind of curious. I didn't even go outside today, so I don't even know for sure. Let's see here. The temperature currently where I reside is 43 degrees. I was actually right on. The low is 36.
The high today here was 78.
Jeez, bro.
It was beautiful weather. We were on our bike ride today. It was sunny.
I like the cold. I like it when it's cold, but I don't like it when it's cold and it's not snowing. Like either be cold, be below freezing, or be well above freezing. Don't hover at that point where it's still raining, but it's freezing ass cold outside.
What I hate is when it's cold and sunny. I would rather it just be cold and cloudy and gloomy, but don't be cold and sunny because that's just a tease.
I kind of like the heat of the sun though, like on your skin when it's still when the ambience like really cold.
I don't, because then you go indoors, right? The sun's coming through the windows, and if they're not like energy efficient windows or argon gas or whatever, then it's just heat coming through the window. And then you walk outside, you're like, brr, it's cold. And then you go inside, you're like, ah, it's hot. Screw that crap.
James Wimp asked, how long should I wait before getting the Zen CPU? Well, probably until it comes out. I'm guessing. I'd be like,
that's a good place to start.
I'd wait until it's on the shelf. Hold on.
You know what I hate about new product launches is nobody can just be patient. Everyone wants to sit there and hound you for information, be like, what should I get? Should I get this or should I get that? Or should I wait? Or should I blah, 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 blah. And it's like, do whatever you want. I'm going to do my video. Look, guys, I already have a 7600K. I already have a 7700K. I already have multiple motherboards, and I plan on doing a 7600K versus a 7700K, not versus a 6700K. I don't have that CPU anymore. I gave it to a friend. And it is what it is. And if I get my hands on Zen, or when I get my hands on Zen, I will do that benchmark. And it is what it is. You take that information, you use it to determine what you're going to buy. I am not going to tell you what to buy. I am not going to tell you buy this CPU or not that CPU. That's not my job. That's not what I do. So that's why if you guys have been like hounding me and bugging me like, why aren't you answering me when I asked you what I should buy? It's because I don't tell you what to buy. I would think 4.5 years now of this, people would realize that. But
I only watch your crap. Bye, Jay.
I know you don't. You probably should take some notes too. Anyway, moving forward. you say something like that, I'm gonna punch your nose.
Honestly,
just
hey, you know, I don't mind speculating. I honestly think that just like every AMD release in history, it's going to come out and it's going to be like one benchmark is going to be phenomenal. It's going to stomp Intel's nuts, and then everything else is just going to be meh.
Remember the way I ended my video about me giving my my thoughts on Zen was, don't fuck it up. AMD, don't fuck this up. But they might. So
No, and AMD needs this. Like